It may not look great, but you get that W and you can learn from the mistakes that you made. I mean, Golden State lost to Sacramento earlier in the season. Any given night, anything can happen.
But Golden State has another gear. They know it. Everyone knows it.
And Cleveland's coming together, and they also have an all-star player sitting on the bench in Kevin Love, who's coming back. So nothing to worry about, but there are some things they need to improve on. There's no question. The offense was great. They only took 24 three-pointers. I feel like they were watching First Things First all week, saying, you know, Broussard's got a good point. No, look, I love shooting the three, but just don't be over-reliant on it. They've got other things they can do, and they did that yesterday.
And by the way, to your point that they weren't over-reliant on it, they only shot 24. Despite making 12 of them.
Yes.
They were shooting well from three, and they still had a more diverse offense, and their offense, as you were mentioning, was great. The offense was not the problem last night.
It was, as you said, the defense, and I think ultimately it was good for them to kind of get their comeuppance, if you will, defensively. The Nets, 26th best offense in the league, but shot 53% against the Cavs. The Cavs' numbers since the trade on the defensive end have been very good. From a worst team in the league defensively, or one of the worst, to 9th best in defensive rating, 4th best in opponents' field goal percentage. It was looking good defensively, but when you really analyzed it, their opponents were getting a lot of open shots and missing them. Last night, the Nets converted those open shots, and that's what made it a game. So now the Cavaliers can realize, look, just having energy, just having young players is not enough defensively. We have to get our rotation shored up. We have to, you know, communicate. We have to play smart on the defensive end and hustle. And I think ultimately it'll be good for them because they can pick it up on that end of the floor.
The reason you have more reason for optimism regarding their defense, aside from the numbers post All-Star break, and again, very small sample size, numbers post-trade, very small sample size, is because they look just the guys out there are longer and more athletic, and there is not a single guy out there anymore, such as Isaiah Thomas or even to a degree Kyrie Irving last year, that you felt like, well, the other team's just going to target that player to go after him. Now, obviously, Kyrie more than made up for it on the offensive end. Isaiah Thomas couldn't, one of the reasons he was traded. So there's reason to be optimistic about their defense, but the general lethargy that you saw pre-All-Star break has gone away. However, the lack of attention to detail, I think you alluded to it. They were giving up open shots. I've watched every Cavs game this year. Before the trades, they looked like they didn't care. Post-trade, they look like they care on defense, but at times they didn't exactly know what they were doing. That on a pick and roll, both guys switch, you know, or one guy switch, one guy doesn't. And so you saw last night when the Cavs, mid-fourth quarter, seemed like they were maybe going to get some separation. There was a play where there was a pick and roll, LeBron and I believe it was George Hill. They both went with the pick, with the guy setting the screen. The guy with the ball was like, okay, I'll just back up and shoot this three. So there's some lack of communication. But offensively, they were extraordinary. And I know it's the Nets, but still, their bench scored 56 points, 21 of 36 from the field for their bench, which is outstanding. Also, the Cavs, one note from last night's game that continued, which is curious, and I wonder how long they can keep this going. 28 times this year they've led entering the fourth quarter. They're 28-0 in those games. So they are a team that right now, I think they've lost something like 17 straight when trailing entering the fourth quarter. But if they have a lead, they have not yet blown a fourth quarter lead or a lead going into the fourth. It was close last night. The Nets took a lead with a couple minutes left. Cavs were able to overcome
it.
The
miscommunication on the pick and roll, the defense kind of coming up short, isn't that a lot to do with just cohesion with these new guys?
Yeah, no question.
Is that the kind of thing where we talk about their offense, and the more these guys get to know each other, their offense is going to get better? Can your defense get better as your chemistry gets better?
Oh, yeah, no question.
Or is there more involved, more factors involved?
Chemistry is very important on the defensive end.
How?
Communication.
How is
just because good defensive team, it's not even mainly about having a great individual defender. It's about your team defense, because everybody's going to get beat at times by great offensive players, but your other teammates need to make up for you, have the right rotation. So that will improve over time. I do want to get to the offense a little bit, though. You mentioned the bench with 56 points. They are going to begin to have to look at something with J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith, we know he's been streaky throughout this season and really through the bulk of his career. The last 3 games, he's had 11 points. on 18% shooting, 4 for 22. He's not a tremendous defender. He's okay. He was really good compared to what they had with all the old guys they traded. But he's not like a tremendous defender. If he's not hitting shots, that's a problem. I think Rodney Hood at this stage of their careers is better. And I think you got Clarkson coming off the bench. You got Nance coming off the bench. You might have to, I think they seriously are going to have to look at putting Rodney Hood in that starting lineup. Will JR be bothered to finish? Maybe.
Well, keep in mind,
and I hate to do that, but come on.
I don't think you have to worry about JR being bothered, because if you remember, JR was playing so poorly earlier in the year. He went to Ty Lue and said, you should take me out of the starting lineup. And Ty Lue said, we're not going to do that. So JR suggested,
think he'll be cool
so I think he would be okay with it.
There is a school of thought that when D-Wade was initially the starter, that ruffled.
It did ruffle. I think both things are true. I think when D-Wade was initially the starter, it was true. However, once JR became the starter again, and then he was going through one of the worst stretches of his career, he talked about it when he had the good 2-week stretch. You know what I mean? Because it was
through that.
right before the trade deadline, and then through the trade deadline and after, he was playing the best basketball he's played in 2 seasons. But the reality for JR is, it is now, and I said yesterday, he's, outside of LeBron, he's my favorite guy on the team. He's the only guy on the team that I feel like I know personally at least a little bit. Yeah. Not the way you know these guys, but to a degree. I really like JR, and I justified how he played last year because he was dealing with a potentially tragic personal situation. Not only an injury, but he had a baby born extremely prematurely that they didn't know if the child was going to make it. His baby was in the hospital for months during the season. And so I said, listen, you're a human being. Like, your mind is not going to be with the team when you're dealing with that. Yeah. Well, thankfully, God bless, the child is in great shape. I think I believe his wife's pregnant again. His family's in great shape. He's recovered from the injury. And he's been bad this year. He has been one of the least productive 2 guards in basketball.
No question.
And so you thought that maybe once he realized he got the amnesty on the trade deadline, I'm not being traded, that, oh, he's turning a corner. But it's back to the low level of production. Now they do have a capable guy to replace him. No, but it's another guy in the starting lineup as well. And this guy's not going to be criticized because anything you get from his opponents. But you can't be starting Jetty Osman come the playoffs. Now, he's a placeholder for Kevin Love. You assume that, the reason he's there is because he knows when Kevin Love comes back, he will take that spot. But JR going out of the starting lineup is a real possibility. The reason they've been able to not only tread water, but really thrive post-trade deadline is LeBron somehow is coming off arguably the best month of his career, certainly one of them. The first month he ever averaged a triple-double. He's going to win Player of the Month in February for, amazingly, the 7th consecutive February. It's his favorite month of the season, I suppose. And so LeBron, we'll get to the milestone stuff, but LeBron is playing at such a high level, last night included. Last night, 32, 11, and 12, and 11, that he's going to cover up some of the warts in the starting lineup. And then when LeBron's on the bench unit's been outstanding.
Yeah, and look, we're talking about JR going to the bench. He's got a game built for that. Yeah. I mean, he's streaky, and that's what a lot of bench guys are. If he can come off hot, he can really give you a boost. Rodney Hood, who has his own inconsistencies at times, but he's more consistent than JR is. And I think Hood, he's getting starters minutes to some degree in Cleveland, but put him in the starting lineup, play him next to LeBron a lot. I think he can give you probably 15, 16 points. And here's the thing, because we've talked about Kevin Love. When he gets back, another adjustment. I think Kevin Love is going to thrive with this group because Kevin Love has been up and down since he's been in Cleveland, or at least the first 3 years. Yeah. Why? Because he was the definitive third option. That's the nature of being a third option. Kyrie was getting his, LeBron obviously was getting his, and Kevin Love just kind of
When was Kevin Love at his best in Cleveland? The first 2 months of this year.
Exactly. He was the second option.
Definitive second option.
Literally the only Cleveland take I had was that Kevin Love as the second option would be great for the Cavs.
It works for them.
And he'll do it.
And it works.
And he will be, with these new guys, the second option.
You touched on LeBron. We're going to talk about his milestone last night. Had an incredible game, part of his incredible